This presentation takes a look at some of the key changes in ISO 9001-2015 and IATF 16949-2016 affecting plant and facility, equipment and tooling maintenance. My name is Paul Hardiman, Director of Quality Partner. I've been working with quality management systems for 25 years and I'm an IATF witness auditor and trainer. So let's take a look at this maintenance process, again using the turtle diagram. And we'll start off by having a look at some of the input requirements to the process. Again, within many customer-specific requirements for IATF 16949, there will be specific requirements about either plant maintenance, equipment maintenance or tooling maintenance. So as an input into the maintenance process, we need to understand customer-specific requirements. Secondly, now we need to take into account the plant, the equipment and the facility plans. So this is the layout of the facility and, for example, where we're going to store tooling, where we're going to store equipment and where we're going to store plant, making sure that we're laying the plan out in the most efficient manner. That's not a new requirement, but maybe more emphasis on that. Thirdly, we need to think about risk identification and management within our maintenance process. Obviously, within our plant, we may have some critical process equipment that if that equipment breaks down, it could have a significant risk in supplying to the customer. So when we develop our maintenance processes, risk is absolutely critical that we understand all the risks. Next thing we need to understand is the capacity requirements. We've spoken about this in several of the processes, for example, within the sales process, within the development process, within the supplier management process, within the purchasing process. But capacity requirements are also important when we talk about maintenance, because we're going to be taking equipment out of production to do either routine maintenance or overhaul. So in our capacity assumptions, we need to take into account that time. So that is an important thing that we need to consider within maintenance. We need to make sure that we're maintaining all the relevant process equipment that we need to produce conforming product to meet the customer capacity requirements. It did talk in the previous standard about criticality of equipment. I think this is just slightly different wording. And then we need very clear maintenance and overhaul plans. So overhaul was never mentioned in ISO TS 16949. So this is where we're taking equipment out of service at a defined frequency, not just to do routine maintenance, but maybe completely strip down the equipment, change key spare parts and rebuild the equipment back up again. So there is an official definition of overhaul within ISO 9001-2015 and within IATF 16949-2016. So we need to take overhauling into account in our maintenance process. So what should be the outputs then of the maintenance process? Well, the main thing is that we have effectively maintained plant, effectively maintained facilities, effectively maintained equipment and effectively maintained tooling. That could be covered in one process or maybe it's broken down into several sub-processes. But overall, within maintenance, we need to make sure that all of those things are effectively managed. We need to make sure we've got completed maintenance plans and we've got documented action plans when objectives are not met. So if we have maintenance objectives, maybe part of overall equipment efficiency, maybe mean time to repair, maybe mean time between failure, whatever our maintenance objectives are, if we're not meeting those documented objectives, we have to have very clear plans for how we're going to improve the situation. We need to make sure that through our maintenance process, we are providing production equipment that has the capacity to meet the customer requirements. And maintenance have a key role to play within that. And finally, we need to make sure that we've got optimized material flow, material handling, and value-added use of floor space. And maintenance, again, are going to contribute to that. So this is not just layout in the plant itself, but it's layout of the whole facility. And for example, how do we lay out the maintenance facility? How do we make sure that we get prompt retrieval of spare parts? Do we operate 5S principles, for example, within the maintenance workshops? So this is the outputs of the maintenance process. So now let's take a look at the what results part of maintenance. I think there's a lot more emphasis in IATF 16949, not just on having a paperwork system for maintenance, but the maintenance process is truly effective and efficient. And again, there is a requirement for documented maintenance objectives, and then IATF gives some examples. Those objectives could be part of the calculation for OEE, about the availability of the equipment. It could be mean time between failure. It could be mean time to repair. We might have preventive maintenance compliance matrix, i.e., for example, are we doing all the maintenance to the defined timings? And it may be that we can also look at on-time delivery performance to see whether any customer disruptions have been caused because of a breakdown of key equipment, and then have the equipment plans been changed as appropriate as a result of that poor delivery performance. So we need to make sure that the objectives for maintenance are clearly monitored to make sure we really truly have got an effective maintenance process. So now let's take a look at the how part of the turtle diagram for maintenance. First of all, we need a documented total preventive maintenance system. So whatever we do within maintenance, we have to make sure this system is documented. Secondly, we need to have an established and implemented system for managing production tooling. So that is a clear identification of the tooling and the maintenance and overhaul of tooling. That all needs to be defined in our total preventive maintenance system. We need to clearly monitor the work of any maintenance activities that are outsourced, making sure that if we do outsource maintenance, that the people who are doing it are competent, and we've got the records available to prove that, and we've got records they've actually done the maintenance activities that have been defined within the maintenance program. It's important as part of capacity planning and production planning that time is allowed for maintenance to happen. From my experience, a lot of maintenance processes are not effective, not because of the lack of competency of the maintenance personnel, but the maintenance people aren't given enough time to do effective maintenance of the equipment. So now there is a clear requirement. We need to factor in time to make sure that we're allocating effective time for maintenance activities, or if necessary, equipment overhaul activities. And finally, contingency plans. We need to think about what are the risks of equipment breakdown, of tooling breakdown, or breakdown in the overall infrastructure within the organisation. If those situations arise, from a contingency plan point of view, how are we going to manage that? For example, if we've got one key press within our organisation, and that's the only press that we can use to press a particular part, if that key press goes down, how will we decide what spare parts we're going to keep? How will we manage any outsourced response time to fix those problems? Or maybe we have to transfer to another part of the organisation if there is a significant breakdown of that key equipment. All of those things have to be managed within the contingency planning process. So now let's take a look at the with who requirement of maintenance. Obviously within maintenance we have to make sure we've got people that are competent to undertake either the plant maintenance, the equipment maintenance, or the tooling maintenance. That's not new, but we need documented information to show that people have got the relevant competencies. But we also need to use a multidisciplinary approach for risk identification within the maintenance process and risk mitigation within the maintenance process. And to do this, we have to use a multidisciplinary approach. For example, maybe we need input from production, we need input from tooling engineers, we need input from design engineers. We need to use a multidisciplinary approach at looking at the potential risks within the maintenance process. And we need to make sure we're providing sufficient resources to do the allocated machine, tool and facility maintenance. Often you go to organisations and the maintenance guys are so tied up with breakdown that a lot of the proactive maintenance is not being done. That needs to be managed. We need to make sure that we've got enough resources to really try and focus on reducing the amount of machine breakdowns and moving to a more preventive or predictive methodology for total productive maintenance. So let's try and summarise the changes within the maintenance process. Firstly, I think there is more emphasis on ensuring capacity with available plant, equipment and tooling. So maintenance have a role to play in that, making sure that we keep the uptime of equipment, but also we take into account the amount of downtime we need to maintain the equipment using preventive maintenance to prevent machine breakdown. Because that really should be the goal of a total productive maintenance system, that we're aiming towards zero breakdown. That should be the ultimate aim. There's more emphasis on document maintenance objectives, and within IATF 16949 it gives examples of objectives. Please remember, when you read, they are only examples. Your organisation needs to determine what are the appropriate maintenance objectives. But those maintenance objectives need to be an input and reviewed at the management review process. There's more emphasis on regular review of the maintenance plans and actions when the maintenance objectives are not being met. So it's a bit like internal audit. We don't develop a maintenance plan and then not change it for a year. We should periodically go back and review the maintenance plan, look at performance, look at breakdowns and make the appropriate changes. We've seen that there is a new requirement about overhaul of equipment. How are we making sure that we've got an effective overall process for equipment? And finally, a requirement to include planned maintenance in the production schedule. So we are, again, it's a bit like capacity planning, that within our production scheduling process, we're allocating clear time to do the proactive maintenance and overhaul activities. So in summary, I think maintenance, again, has a key role to play in making a successful transition. Many companies, while they have a maintenance process, often it's more focused on firefighting and fixing breakdowns. The IATF methodology is to move towards a more proactive maintenance system using the principles of total productive maintenance, really with the aim that we are going to eliminate breakdowns by keeping equipment in optimum condition.